Welcome to Signs of Spirit, your podcast on learning how those in the spirit world communicate with you in your daily lives and how you can recognize the signs of spirit. With evidential spirit medium, Jock Brokas, founder of Afterlife Connect and president of the ASS MPI.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jock here, and I'd like to welcome you today to our first in the series of our podcast lessons on Signs of Spirit. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what we're going to do over the next 10 weeks or so, hopefully maybe longer, and I can assure you that you won't always just be listening to me. We're going to be bringing on more experts and cover everything from healing from my lovely wife through to learning about the hypnotherapy aspects of grief, and that will be from our wonderful friend Tracy. First of all, though, before we jump into this lesson, let me just start off with a story that kind of exemplifies what we're going to be talking about. And once there was a sitting many years ago for a woman who was very skeptical of the afterlife, and came to a medium to have a reading, and that reading went very, very well. But rather than going into the ins and outs of trying to explain to you everything that happened in the reading, we're not going to do that. What I'm going to just say to you is that Spirit had come through and said to the woman that they knew that she was actually looking for a sign from the other side of life, a sign to let them know that they were fine. And this was her father actually was communicating, and that everything would be well in her life. And the father says, you know, I'm going to send you the sign, I'm going to send you a butterfly. He never said he was going to send a sign, so I'm going to send you a butterfly. But during this sitting, he had to stress, do not look for it, because it will come at the right time. Now, you can imagine saying something like that to a skeptic. That's just not going to go down, and it doesn't sound very evidential. But coincidentally, you know, a little bit of time had passed, and the woman heard a knock at the door, and she went to her front door, and there in front of her was a friend whom she hadn't seen for over 15 years. And that friend had come, had been living away and had come to see her, and had been, you know, she invited her in, and they had a great reunion, but she brought her a gift. And when she brought her the gift, she opened up this gift and she gave the woman a beautiful butterfly, a kind of brass and gold butterfly in a little box. That woman immediately remembered, she went back to the time when she had that sitting with the medium, and remembered the words from her father, that I will send you a butterfly. That's very important. It's very important to recognize. This wasn't any ordinary, you just go out and see a butterfly in the garden. This was a particular sign. He told her not to look out for it, that it would come at the right time. And that happened. How amazing is that? That's just absolutely fantastic. That woman who was very skeptical, she had so much evidence from the spirit world, but that small thing in particular probably changed her perspective for the future and moving on. And she got back in touch with the medium and passed that story over. This happens, ladies and gentlemen, over and over again. So many people who have lost loved ones, and it doesn't matter if they've lost loved ones through not how they lose loved ones, but let's say, for instance, it doesn't matter the relationship, whether the relationship was a closed relationship or an open relationship, or they had a particular bond, what someone tends to remembers all about that individual, what their likes and their dislikes were. When we lose loved ones, we go through that grief process, but we try and hold on to the memories of what they were like. For instance, my father loved bagpipes and loved nature and things like that. And we hold on to those good memories, and we hold on to those things that give you a recognition of who that person was. Even though we may have had some bad experiences, we tend to just, put those bad experiences to one side, and we try to remember the good things about our loved ones. And while we're reminiscing over perhaps what they were like, many things come to our mind. And in particular, those things that come to our mind will be certain things like what they like to eat, what they like to wear, music that they liked, all sorts of different things. And those give us, it's like a signature, if you like. It gives a good signature of what that actual person was like, and their personality, etc. So, moving forward, why would Spirit want to communicate with us from the other side? Well, one of the reasons, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is my perceptions, my understanding, and you have to take on what resonates with you, and what doesn't, you just leave it to the side. But what I want to try and do is just to give you as much information as possible that you can take away with you. So why do you think that Spirit would want to communicate? Well, if someone is grieving really bad, they obviously want to comfort. There's an element of comfort there. They want to come back and say, hey, I'm alive. Hey, I haven't gone. Death is merely an illusion. I'm not dead. I'm still involved in your life, though you cannot see me. They want to let you know that they're alive. And perhaps one of the things that they do, one of the things that they want to do is to send you signs that you will recognize. And you may ask for these signs because it's become more apparent in modern days as mediumship has exploded and afterlife research has exploded. People are asking more and more for signs, and people are experiencing apparitions of loved ones and all sorts of things. And we're going to cover all of these aspects of how they communicate. But for today, we're going to look at a favourite thing, and that is going to be how our loved ones communicate is through animals. But so you understand that there is a need for you to feel that your loved ones are still there. It's a terrible thing when we lose a loved one and we suffer. We miss their physical touch. We miss their voice. We miss seeing them visually. Their presence seems that they're gone. And that can be something hard to take on. It doesn't matter what religion you are. The fact that your loved ones as you perceive, have left you, you feel loneliness and you feel abandoned. And even when you have so many friends or family, you can still be the loneliest person in the room. I'm sure you've heard that saying many, many times. So Spirit are very excited. Once someone crosses that void into the other side of life, they're very excited because they recognize that, they're not dead, and that life continues after the death of the physical body. And they want to come back and share that message with you so that you don't suffer so much, so that you realize that they're still involved in your life. And they can do that with sending you signs and sending you wonderful signs from the afterlife. One of the biggest problems that people go through is recognition of those signs. So before we jump into the recognition of the signs, let's talk about how many signs, what kind of signs may be available that Spirit would utilize. especially we're talking about animal signs today, because as we move on through the podcast, we're going to go on to a lot of other signs, but animal signs are very prevalent, and it happens so often that these animal signs become indicative of someone's passing, become an important aspect of someone's passing, or of someone on the other side making contact with the family to let them know that they are alive. And I just want to share with you, perhaps if I may, another little story from a sitting from another medium, where the woman had lost, again, and this is not the same person, but the woman had lost her husband, and her husband came through, and he gave the, dogs and cats are certainly very, very important within our lives, and maybe smaller animals less, so much, but dogs and cats are certainly very important, especially if we've gained and we've had a relationship with our pets. And even when they cross, and that's another lesson that we'll do. But for now, if we've had a relationship with our pets and our pets are still alive with us, and maybe our loved one has gone and left their dog behind, then it's very clear that a pet would be able to pick up those subtle nuances of spirit a lot more readily than you would. And so I'm just going to share, before we jump into other different animal signs, I just want to jump into another little story that I started there about a woman who had missed her husband so dearly, and she had come for a sit-in. And, the husband had come through and had given his evidence, and then started to talk about his dogs, his two golden retrievers, how he missed them, and gave them names, and various other things about the dogs, but had mentioned one particular piece of evidence, that they would often be seen sitting by his favourite chair and staring at him because they could see him when he visited. Now, that may not sound a great deal of anything to anybody, but to that woman, that was incredibly powerful for her. And you've got to remember that one person's evidence is another person's failure. And that's something that we can go into in the future. But what was really important about this aspect was the woman had recently taken a photograph. And he had mentioned that she had been looking at photographs, etc. And there was also so much evidence that was coming through. But this in particular was the fact that she had taken a photograph of the two dogs, and the two dogs were watching and sitting by the chair, staring at him. And there is exactly that. There is a photograph of the woman, of the dog, sorry, not the woman, of the dog, who took the photographs of the dogs looking at his favourite chair and staring at his favourite chair at a certain time each time that there was a visitation. And this just doesn't happen once, this happens many times. And because that gentleman had such a close relationship with his dogs, that was a great piece of evidence for her, and it helped her to understand life after death more, and the responsibility of the animals in her life. And throughout history, we have many examples of animals, and just as a few examples, you have dogs, you have cats, we have the famous butterflies that are so very indicative of signs, certain birds. It could be deer, it could be any animal at all that has a particular, either a relationship with the deceased loved one, or the deceased loved one has a particular love of them. And there's so many stories that we can talk about, and as we go through, we'll talk about some more of these stories. But for now, we want to move on. So that you can get a good idea of it. So one of the things that I would like to put across, and let's get this out at the very beginning, is a lot of people will say to me, well, I've asked for a sign, and why am I not getting that sign? Why is it not happening for me? And there's probably a bit of an argument to be said here, because a lot of people, when they're looking for signs, will almost make any sign particularly stick. Or they ask for a sign, and because it doesn't come when they want it, they get very sad and don't think that their loved ones have heard them, or that it's just not true and that the afterlife doesn't exist. In many cases, I've heard that I've asked so many times for Spirit to come through and give me a sign, and it's never happened. Well, let me just put one thing clear. Spirit will always be giving you a sign. There are regular signs around you, but sometimes it's so subtle that you miss it. And if you're a person who's going through grief, your grief could actually block you from receiving that sign. Your emotional point of vibration at that time may block you from recognizing those little subtle signs of Spirit, those little subtle signs that they send you. The other issue is patience. As in our nature, we're generally not patient. And certainly with myself, I think about something, or I want to do something, I want it done yesterday, not tomorrow or the next day, but I want it quickly. I don't want to wait. It just seems to be a waste of time when you're waiting for something. So we have to have a bit of patience. We can't just ask and say we want a sign and expect it to come immediately. And let me just again exemplify that from my own experience. When I was developing as a medium, I would learn about all these signs and hear about all these signs and everything that happened. And I remember always being taught, when you're dealing with a spirit guide, and we'll deal with this at a later time, you should always ask for signs and you should get proof of who they are, etc., etc. And so I remember one day I was very demanding, and I went to a little favourite spot in the woods. There's a place called Tirebagger in Aberdeenshire. And I would jog around there and walk around there and stuff. And one day there was a place that I particularly like to go to and sit on a tree log and kind of meditate to myself. And I had a pet with me. I had a dog, And so I went this day and I decided that I was going to ask for a sign of my guide. And I was not just going to ask, but I was going to demand that I had a sign. But I was going to choose the sign that I wanted. A little bit of this ego was creeping in here. And so when I sat down, I went in and I did a little bit of a meditation outside, and it was absolutely beautiful. The sun was shining. It was warm. There was a very, very little breeze in the air. It was just fantastic. And so I went into my meditation and I said to Spirit, I want a sign. I want a white butterfly, and that white butterfly, when I came out of my meditation, has got to be waiting for me or flying around. And I came out of the meditation a little while longer. My dog had been running about playing. And did I get that white butterfly? No. There was more flies and midges than anything else. There was no white butterfly. There was nothing beautiful like that flying around. And so I got quite annoyed, and I got, I was kind of down a little bit because I realised it never worked. Spirit obviously never heard me. Loved ones on the other side never heard me. It was crazy. But anyway, I, got over it and decided to walk back to my car, and I was meeting my wife, who's now my wife, but she was my wife then. I was meeting Joanne, and we were going to go for a bit of lunch, and I was picking her up. Anyway, cut a very long story short, as I was driving down the road, I was, just spoken to her. I was going to go and pick her up to go for lunch. But as I was driving down, I wasn't thinking of anything else. Lo and behold, a white butterfly landed on my windscreen. So shocked was I at the fact that I could see this white butterfly that I was actually staring, and it stayed there for a little while, and I watched it, and I took my eyes straight off the road and I went over the main verge, which was not a good place to be, and nearly onto the opposite side. So that was a big lesson for me. You've got to be careful what you ask for. because you'll get it, but you might not get it in the way that you want it. And why am I telling you this? Is because it shows you that our loved ones and our spirit team, they are listening to us and they do send us signs. But sometimes we can be a little bit demanding, and sometimes through our own emotional point of attraction, we may not notice those signs. And especially when we're going through grief, we could block ourselves. So it's very important to try and work on your emotional point of attraction. And I'm not saying that you just get over your grief. You don't. We don't heal through grief. We journey through grief. But we want to take as much time as possible and not be in the point of demanding and expecting something straight away. Our loved ones will send us signs, especially if we have a connection with animals. We just need to notice them, and we need to learn to notice them. And that can be about your spiritual point of attraction. That could be about your ability to meditate, to recognize these signs, to get over your emotional negativity in order to be receptive to the signs that may be around us. And if you have a particular penchant for any particular animal, then I'm sure that your loved ones will be sending you those signs to let you know, especially if they had a love for them too, and you both shared that same subject. So, in particular, animal signs are one of the most potent ways that we recognize spirit around us. And again, the types of signs, especially in the UK and other areas of the world, we have birds. Birds are an excellent sign of spirit, and butterflies, as I've said before, and any type of animal that you may have a relationship. But, and here is another question. How do people have said to me, and this is, and I've been quite shocked at the kind of response or the kind of questions that I've got in the past, is they have a perception that their loved ones have taken over that form of the butterfly, the robin redbreast, the eagle, or whatever it is, and they seem to think that their loved ones have become that. And I don't subscribe to that thought process, and you know, many other mediums may actually subscribe to it. They may. I have heard of mediums saying that your father or your mother visited you and was a butterfly or was a dragonfly. I tend not to subscribe to that, but I have another, which I understand from spirit, another explanation that I would like to put forward that you might find easier to receive. And that is that these animals have a very limited free will, and these animals have they're not as materially affected by the world, and therefore, because they're so close to spirit, they're more closer to Mother Nature, they're closer than we actually are to the spirit world, that it's very easy for our loved ones on the other side to influence them. And so when spirit said to you, I'm going to send you a sign, or I may send you a sign of a bird, or I'm going to send you a sign in a setting, this is of a in a reading, you know, the medium may then say, your father's saying, I'm going to send you this, or your mother's saying, I'm going to send you this particular sign, look out for it. The spirit world knows that they can influence the animal kingdom easier because there is such a close connection to spirit. There is such a clearer vibrational match to that natural energy, that's the energy in the spirit world. And so your loved ones could actually influence that bird, that butterfly, that other animal. The other thing is, taking that one stage further, we've talked about how that would maybe happen within a reading. Let's say, for instance, your mother has passed, but your mother loved, I'm going to take something fairly obscure and from an example, a dragonfly. Now, let's say you go outside and you're in an area, certainly in Florida, there's lots of dragonflies, and let me see that, you see lots of dragonflies. A lot of people would tend to think, okay, that's the sign, Mum's there. And I don't want to upset anybody, but let's be a little bit scientific about this, guys. It's the same thing as you'll receive a feather from your angel, and you go outside and there's lots of birds around and they drop a feather. I would tend to really question that. You've got to be scientific about it. One, because you don't want to lead yourself into a false sense of security, and two, you really want to know that sign is from Spirit. You want to feel it in your heart and your soul, and you will when it is the right one. So going outside and seeing lots of butterflies or dragonflies or something like that, really, it's not really that scientific. And if you want to accept that as a sign, then that's fine. But I would venture an opinion to say that that's not really a sign, and most signs are very clear cut, so that you recognize them from the spirit world that is a sign for you. And an example would be during a sit-in with a medium most recently, is the woman had a particular love of, and let me just say, the dragonflies, and loved that dragonfly. And on the particular day of the funeral, or I'm not sure actually if it was the funeral or if it was when the gathering, when the family was there, there was a dragonfly was found in the room, flying about the room where the body was, and that in itself was very strange, because it wasn't the season for them, and there wasn't any dragonflies seemed to be outside, and this was one unusual incident of that dragonfly or that butterfly being in that room. Now, that's very strange in itself, and so that would be something that you could perhaps take on as a sign, and that person did, because they recognized the love and the connection the individual had with that particular animal. Another situation would be, and again from another example of a sitting with a family and a medium, would be when the daughter who had passed through terminal illness had a love of owls, and no matter where they went, and they had gone to see other mediums, and maybe they'd never really had the signs that they had been looking for, they had asked their daughter to send them a really, really clear sign that it was her, and that she was actively involved in their life still. And what actually happened is when they came, when they went to the medium for the sit-in, and she had, remember I said she had a love of owls, and she really loved owls. When the family actually came in, and the father was the one who had actually asked for the sign, there was, I believe, there was coffee and there was tea made, and there was only one mug left, and the one that was given to the father was the mug of an owl. And that hit him like a ton of bricks, because that to him was his sign. He wasn't looking for a particular owl flying around, but that was a clear-cut distinction from his daughter, that she was there and she was about to come through and validate her life and validate her evidence from the other side. And that was one of the ways of doing so. And this didn't become apparent actually until later, when at the end, when he actually explained this to the medium. And of course, again, there was other little signs, when they came in, and there was pictures around that were indicative of that same thing. So one could say, yes, was that coincidental? And a lot of scientists or skeptics would argue that fact. But knowing how the mechanics of the spirit world work, I would venture and say that that was probably arranged from the other side earlier on, and that gave the family some hope and some direction that what they were doing was the right thing. So, but when, like I said before, when you're grieving, you can block a lot of these things, and you won't pick them up as readily, So you have to be quite scientific about your signs. There is people that will say you received the sign of a butterfly, and there's butterflies in the summer all over the place, and because you may be grieving that much, you'll take it on board. So I would say that when you're asking spirit for signs, you have to make sure that communication's clear, that you're not just going to go out and accept anything, because if you're accepting anything, it means you're accepting it through your emotional point of connection. You're grieving, or your ego is kind of taking over a little bit, or even the ego of the medium if they're actually giving you evidence of that kind of thing. So we have to be very scientific, and it's not because we want to be hard on ourselves, far from it. It's because we want to feel the reality of the spirit world in us. When you receive a sign that is unequivocally for you, it will become so apparent and so clear in your emotion, in your heart and your soul, that nobody can strip that from you. Nobody. So that's what I would say, is to be a bit scientific and make sure that you're aware enough that you know what you're looking for. And spirit will, there's no doubt about it, they will give you a sign. But it may not be in your time, and that's another thing, is you have to have a bit of patience. They may not be in your time. And so we want to be open enough that we say, we expect that when you give us a sign, an animal communication from the other side, that we will be open enough to receive that, but receive it in the right time. Sometimes our desperation and our grieving can make us, we want it so fast, and we want to feel the reality of our loved ones that are there. And it does happen, but we may miss it. So one of the things that I'm going to go on the next section, I'm going to take a little bit of a break just for 5 minutes. In the next section, I want to talk about how you can make yourself more readily available to receive the signs of the spirit world. So we'll have a wee 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. God bless, guys. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a little bit of a break and had a cup of tea or something else. And we're going to talk in this section just a little bit of how you can prepare yourself. But let me just open again with just another very quick story of how animals can communicate with us from our loved ones on the other side. And this comes from a friend of ours whose father, he just, even before he just died, he wanted to, I don't like using the words died because it seems so very final, but let's just say crossed over, because we don't believe that they're dead, that they're certainly more alive than we are. But he had a love for a robin redbreast. He really, even when he was ill, he would just want to sit by the window and watch the robin feeding on his in the trees, and he would just like to watch the birds, or for those of my American counterparts that don't understand me, the birds. That's another story. Anyway, what actually happened on the day that he had passed, the very next day, when the mother and the daughter were together, where he liked to sit and watch his birds, they noticed a robin redbreast sitting on the mantelpiece. Not the mantelpiece, sorry. God. Sitting on the, the windowsill. The windowsill. And they never thought nothing of it. They thought, oh well, it's just a robin, and you know, Dad loved robins and stuff like that. You know, that was just never really connected with them in that kind of way. But every morning at the same time, that robin redbreast would show and would sit on the windowsill and even started tapping on the window until they really, really recognised and noticed and considered, this must be Dad letting us know he's okay. When they had that recognition, when they both came to that conclusion that that was Dad, they never saw that robin redbreast again. That robin never came back. They went away. So it kind of tells you, yep, a lot of people will say, well, there could be reasons for that, and the birds were being fed, etc., etc. But think about it. Think about the reality of that, the family grieving, and father who loved, absolutely adored the robin redbreast. Just very, very soon after his death, the robin appears on the windowsill every day, round about the same time, and even taps the window. And then once they recognise that that's what it is, they don't see it again. You know? I would say, ladies and gentlemen, that's a very strong case for signs from our, you know, loved ones in the spirit utilising animals. We're so very aware of this, you know, we're very aware of this because it sticks us right in your face. It's there. Spirit have made a bold gesture to awaken you to the fact that they're there. And sometimes we miss these signs because we're so upset, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people have said to me a lot, Jock, how do I get a sign? How do I prepare myself? And the first thing I've always said is, one, well, you ask for a sign, or you make yourself open to receiving the signs. And if you're really heavily in grief, sometimes Spirit will be so bold that they will give you a sign that's just so unbelievable. And we'll talk about that in other lessons, but they'll be so unbelievable, bang. That it just wakens you up. But sometimes it's so subtle, and you can make yourself more aware of it. Now, I'm not going to go in now to teach you meditation. We'll do that on other lessons. It would take too long. But what I want to do is maybe give you just a few tips of how you can be more aware. I'm a great, and for those people that know me, I'm a great kind of supporter and exponent of mindfulness, and I believe that mindfulness makes us more aware. I wrote an article on Om Times, which you can go and read it if you like, all about mindfulness and how we can hear Spirit clearer by being more mindful. But if you haven't studied mindfulness or meditation, and sometimes the word meditation can put people off because they think, I can't meditate. I can't go into that silence of spirit. I can't sit in the power. I can't do what other people are doing. Well, you can, but maybe you're just not ready to do that yet. And maybe so many people make it so complicated for you that it puts you off. And so we'll talk about that in another segment. But for now, what I want to do is maybe give you a few little tips of how you can make yourself a little bit more aware of spirit around you, and how you can start to prepare your spirit and your body and your mind all to blend in as one. And before we go into the whole meditative aspects, it can be very simple. I'm going to give you a few little examples of how this can help. One of my favourite ways, is having a little meditation in the shower. When you're having a shower, instead of trying to, think about everything that's going on in your life, is just stand in the shower and imagine the water as being a waterfall. And you don't need to think of anything else. Just visualize it and you'll start to feel a little bit calmer. You'll start to feel calm in your emotions, and in that way you're calming your spirit down, and you're having a nice relaxing time in the shower, and just you don't have to do anything much else in that. We will go into teaching proper meditation, protection techniques, all that kind of stuff much later on, but I just want to get you calm and open to the possibility of your loved ones communicating with you. The other thing that I would say is obviously is the use of music. Now, I'm not saying you listen to heavy metal or death metal or something like that and expect that to raise your vibration enough that it calms you. It certainly won't. But choosing maybe a nice soft vibrational tone music, or North American Indians, classical music, something like that vibration can also help to calm you and to help to open up your other senses to what's around you. But one of the best things and one of the easiest things that I try to impart to people is of becoming aware. And now that might sound a little bit suspect, if you like, but being aware of things in your daily life makes you more aware of things in the spirit. And becoming aware of something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, go into the silence and start to really concentrate and visualize on things. But it's almost a mindfulness practice of becoming aware of what you're doing in your daily life, becoming aware that you're sitting in your chair. And even if you only take a few minutes of the day to do this, sometimes those minutes will turn into, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever. And you can add this up through the day. I want to take it through from when you wake up in the morning. Most of us will think, we'll open our eyes and jump out of bed. Oh, alarm clock's gone, gotta go. I've got to get up, get ready for work, I've got to do this, I have children. Okay, so if you've set your alarm for, say, 7:30, what is wrong with setting your alarm for, say, 7:15 and having 5 minutes of just sitting or even lying in your bed and becoming aware of your surroundings, feeling the duvet on your toes, feeling the touch of your loved one next to you, if you're married or you're with a partner, or just feel your surroundings, slowly becoming aware of the sounds of the world arising, the cars or the trees in the distance, or hearing the birds tweeting, slowly becoming aware of the light in your room, becoming aware of your surroundings, and being grateful for the miracle that God has given you to be able to do that, or whatever you believe God is to you. It's just a fabulous, easy way to start to become more aware of the natural world and surroundings that are around you, because let's face it, the natural world is as close to spirit as you're going to get. I mean, the North American Indians, they knew this. They venerated those in the spirit and Mother Nature. So why can't we do that? We can. That's only a few minutes. Without we get into meditations and stuff like that. That's just becoming aware. When you have your first coffee of the morning, or you have your first cup of tea of the morning, again, becoming aware that you are doing that, how you're holding your cup, be thankful for it. How did the tea get there? The people that picked the tea leaves, the sort of, you have to think back to the story of how that happened. Try and visualize back to how that might have happened. And slowly you'll start to become more, and if you do this, every day, or even 3 times a week, or even twice a week, it doesn't matter how regular it is, it will become a natural response, and it will become something that will become ingrained in your mind, body, and soul to do. And dare I say it, it's almost like a drug. And you become addicted to it, but it's a good addiction. It's something that really, and it will affect your life in so many ways, positively rather than negatively, because you're becoming aware of the power within you. You are the power. You're allowing Spirit to come into your power. You're raising your vibration and activating the inner divine authority and power that you have within you. You don't have to be a medium to do this. We're all mediums at some level. You just have to have an awareness of being aware. And we talk about that even more in depth later. But that awareness comes with just the first time you open your eyes, or even before you go to sleep, is becoming, aware of things around you. When you're eating, and these are mindfulness practices. How you eat slowly, and you're giving thanks to how the food got there, and you're feeling, and you're gratuitous for the fact that you have food on your plate. But how many times? Let me go back to how many times do we get up in the morning and we rush around and we don't get anything done, and then we dive out the door. And we don't even see the beauty of a flower. We don't even see the majesty of a tree. We don't even see the beauty of the clouds. Or for goodness sake, if it's raining and thundering, we don't see the beauty and the wonder of that. We see the issues of the material world. Oh God, it's raining again. Oh my goodness, it's so overcast. This is not nice. Every part of life is a miracle. Every part of life is a blessing to experience. There's always a blessing in something negative. And so I want you to try and open your mind and your hearts to the wonder of nature around you, and to the wonder and the miracle of life that you're given each day by Spirit to live. In this power alone, we become aware of our loved ones on the other side, because our vibrational matches become more of a similar frequency, that they can connect with us and they can, manifest these signs for us. So if you take each day to try and recognize the wonder and the beauty and the majesty of life, don't watch so much news because it's so negative. At the moment it's terrible. But there's so many other things that we can do that create a ripple effect, a domino effect. If you throw a pebble into a pond, those ripples will expand and they will eventually go throughout the whole pond. A loving thought can travel the globe. A prayer can break the barriers of the universe. A kind word to someone can make or break their day. To recognize the beauty of a young child, to recognize the wonder, the colour and the majesty of a flower, of an artist who has painted a beautiful picture, of a photographer who's taken a photo and captured the majesty and the beauty of something that is God-given, that is divine in all essence. You're becoming aware. And if you can have an awareness that you're being aware, if you can think, I recognize the beauty in that, I recognize the spirit in that, I recognize the divine in that, then you will be ready and you will open yourself up to receiving the signs of your loved ones from the other side, whatever sign it is. In particular, what we're talking about with animals, because if you, as I said, if you both have that love of animals, or you recognize that person had that love of animals or had that love of that, then they will send you that particular sign. They will manifest that in your presence so that you recognize that. And becoming more aware of your daily and the blessings you have in your life will make you more open to receiving these, or recognition of the signs. To be able to recognize those subtle nuances of those signs. And let me give you another example of a wonderful sign that happened when Spirit came through and passed on evidence. And the person was a grandfather in Spirit who had a great passion, for birds, like a lot of people do. But in particular, he didn't have a great love for a particular bird, but he did say to his loved one on the other side, I'm going to send you a sign, and watch for the sign of a woodpecker. That sounds really strange because he wasn't particularly, driven by woodpeckers, and the person who, loved animals and nature didn't necessarily draw towards any particular bird or woodpecker. And so on a day that they started watching for the signs, which is something I would say, don't watch for it, because it will come and it will hit you like a ton of bricks. If you watch for it, you can trick yourself into receiving a sign that may not actually be from spirit. It's just one of these, there's loads of birds or there's feathers around you because there's seagulls above you that have dropped them or something like that. I want you to recognize and say, Jock, my God, I got my sign. It was amazing. It was absolutely blew me away. Then you'll know exactly what I mean. So this person had decided to go for a walk one day in the woods, and walking down the country path, and was looking for woodpeckers or any sign like that, and it never ever came. And so that made them really sad and not think about, well, they're not listening to me, the spirit world. But as you know and I know, the spirit world will always answer your call. You just have to be open to pick up the receiver. Now, which is you. That person went for a meal with her husband in the evening, and they went to a restaurant that was actually not in the woods at all. It was really on the side of a highway, and it was really a built-up area. There was nothing there. To the husband's amazement, the kind of scream as she noticed that there was one tree in the garden, and there was a tree house in the garden, like in the area. Nothing else. Car park was everything else was there, but this one little tree that had a little a bird table right next to it, and the rest of the area was built up. It wasn't in forestry. It wasn't anything else, but the woman recognized all of a sudden a woodpecker landed on the bird table and started pecking at the table and eating whatever was there. And the minute she recognized it, and she then realized, my God, this is really strange. Why would a woodpecker be here? Why would a woodpecker be here? I mean, this is not, we're not in the woods or anything. And then it was on the tree, and it flew between the tree and the table, and it was pecking. And as she then noticed it, and it became more apparent that it was spirit, that it may be her grandfather, and then she accepted that as the sign from her grandfather. And the husband, who was rather shocked and surprised, the woodpecker, I nearly said birdpecker again, the woodpecker flew away and was never seen again. So, yes, people could question that, but to her and to him, that was the sign they were waiting on. And it came when they were least expecting it, in an area where it was not common at all to have that bird there, especially next to a highway and built up in an area that was, I don't know what the word is, would be here in America, but certainly, in towns and villages and things around you, and not forestry or even farmland or anything. It was just a built up area, and you wouldn't see those type of birds primarily, in that area. Then that happened, so they took that sign. So there are a lot of animal signs that can happen that your loved ones will send you, and it will hit you like a ton of bricks. But also, and let me, just before we finish, because I know we're going to drag on a little bit, but also, sometimes if your loved one is ready to pass, then the spirit world, your spirit team, or your other loved ones on the other side, or even your guides, your angels, they will send you a sign that passing will be okay. And that may come from the sight or a sign from an animal. And normally, and I've heard this so many times, it could be, you know, a butterfly came into the ward, and I knew that my mum was going to pass and was going to be okay. In one particular case, when a father, you know, was ill and was passing, on the morning just before the passing, again in a completely different area and very unusual, 2 deer were seen in the person's garden, which was really unusual because they don't really come there, and they didn't live in the wood, in the country. But somehow, you know, these deer, you know, came from maybe a local farm area. It was not normally I mean, I don't even know how it came, but they had mentioned that, you know, these 2 deer were seen in the morning, and that person loved deer, and so they took that as a sign that, you know, their loved one was about to pass and everything would be okay. So there's many ways. I tend to try and look at the science of it, I won't just accept a butterfly out in the garden that's around you. It would have to be strange. A butterfly coming into your house or your car or and it doesn't necessarily have to be a living animal. Like I said before, at the beginning when we started, the woman who had her father come through said, "I'll send you a butterfly," and she was brought a jewel as a butterfly. There is so many ways that spirit will utilize signs of animals around you. I just want you guys to be open to it. And if you've got any questions, then ask them, because we'll record the answers and I'll bring in other experts. But think about, you know, and think about the story of you know, the guy coming and visiting his dogs and the wife taking a picture at the same time, and over a period of time, and those dogs would sit at the chair and watch him as he visited. And that was confirmed by the evidence that came from the spirit world. There are so many ways that our loved ones will be able to manipulate animals or signs from the spirit world. And it's really to do with their vibrational match to maybe the animals on this side. Or you becoming more aware and them being able to send you notification signs. It's like an email, or it's like a notification, a push notification that pops up on your desktop. It's like them saying, "Hey, there you go. I'm still alive. I'm still here. And this is. Do you recognize this? I love this particular dog, or I love this. I loved butterflies," or it could be anything like that. And another example. About a mother and a daughter whose mother and her grandmother had come through, and they both just received at the same time at different locations a given picture of a butterfly, that, you know, a drawing that they were given as a gift. And that, I would say, that's pretty close to a sign from spirit I've ever had, especially when spirit come through and give them evidence of it. So there's many different ways the evidence will come through. There's many different signs of animals in the spirit world that will come, and, you know, that will be influenced by your loved ones in spirit, to let you know that they're alive and well, and that there's no such thing as death. If you take anything away from this, what I would want you to take away from it is not the stories of what happened and how spirit came through and gave evidence that they're around by the signs of animals or anything like that, but it's about the awareness that you can build within yourself to open yourself to the subtle nuances of the spirit world. If you can become more aware in your daily life and become more mindful of your life around you, I guarantee you, before you even jump into meditation or anything, just becoming more aware and more aware of your thoughts and more aware of the wonder that surrounds you, you will gradually, your inner spirit voice, your inner divine authority will spark. It will become stronger. That spark will be ignited. That natural ability you have within yourself will be enhanced, and you will be able to start recognizing those signs around you. And remember, guys, you have to be scientific. Don't just take anything for granted. Don't just take anything as a sign, because that doesn't help you. You might think it does, but it doesn't. And later on, you know, as we get into learning all about these signs, and over the weeks, we'll eventually come to a point where we'll teach the meditation aspect, and we'll teach you how to ask properly for your signs and how to expect the expectation, and balancing all that out within your spiritual abilities and your spiritual awakening. I'm glad that I could just share this with you. I could go on and on and on, and we could teach, but it's been an hour, and I don't want to bore you. But I could tell you loads of stories, and I could teach you lots of different techniques. But I want other people to share. And if you've got a story of how, and in particular, guys, how you have received an animal sign, let us know. Share it with those on Afterlife Connect. Share it with those people who might be grieving. You know, send us in your stories so that we can share that knowledge with others. That it may just help them to realise that you know, spirit are alive, and they're walking that journey not alone. That they have loved ones around them, and they have support structure, and of course they are developing their own inner power to recognise spirit around them. Send us in your stories, guys. I am delighted that I have spent this time with you. I hope you've learned something. I could waffle on for hours about it and tell you stories and different things. But we will end it there. And if you want to know more, please send us in your questions or anything you want to learn, and we will do that for you. And be aware, be more mindfully aware, be aware of your surroundings and the beauty and the wonder of what spirit do for you in your daily lives. Notice the colour of a flower. Notice even the clothes that people, you know, that you choose, or a child playing, or sounds around you. You're going to start to really develop your inner power, and then we'll take it to the next level. Guys, thank you very much for spending this time with me, and God bless. Bye-bye.